This conference will now be recorded.
So before I start, let me ask this question. How many of you able to create a Docker image and deploy the Docker image as a container? So far, yesterday we created some applications, we created images and we deployed applications that are images as a containers. Today it's a fifth class. Today it's a fifth class of Docker. From last 4 days, I am explaining what is image, what is container, how to build, right? Even after 4 days, even after fifth day, if you are not able to do, then what do you want to learn? So what do you want to learn? Even after 5 days, if you are not able to create an image, Docker and Kubernetes is very, very important. We are spending a lot of time to discuss Docker and Kubernetes again in detail, not at high level, right? We are spending a lot of effort as a trainer. I am spending a lot of effort to teach Docker and Kubernetes because which is more important. And I am expecting same effort, same dedication from all of you. At least whoever is attending the classes, I am expecting that same effort. Whoever is not at all attending, I am least bothered because if they are not interested to learn Docker and Kubernetes or other DevOps topics, I don't force. I don't force them. If they don't want to learn, okay, let them don't want to learn, and they'll struggle because Docker and Kubernetes is very, very important as an interview perspective. If you want better job with better package, you need to do some hard work. You need to spend some time. You need to spend some time. You need to do the assignments, practice. Without that, don't expect anything. Okay. So whoever is attending, I am expecting at least the same effort. Whoever is not attending, I am least bothered. It is not a school or college. I cannot force anyone. So if you are having any issues while practicing, let me know so that I can help you. I am available here so that I can help you. If you are practicing, if you are facing any issues, let me know. Okay. So we'll continue. On the commands, first we'll understand the commands as I told, then we will go for some advanced topics. So image related commands and container related commands. We already discussed a lot of commands. This is to build an image. If I want to see the images which is available locally in that server, local registry, what command we can use? We can use Docker images or Docker image ls. If I want to see the layers of that image, what command I can use? Docker history. Docker history, image ID, or that name, that tag, whatever you have given. Now, image name or ID. That name is nothing but whatever tag you have given. Now, if I want to see more details about image, lot of additional details, there is a command called Docker inspect, Docker inspect, Docker inspect, image name or ID, or Docker image inspect. You can use this one, Docker image inspect, to see more details about the image. If I want to push the image, Docker push. If I want to pull the image, Docker pull. If I want to push the image to the registry, or if I want to pull the image, I can use this one. For authentication, I want to authenticate with registry. If before pushing, we can use Docker login. The Docker login. Now, if I want to remove image, what command I can use? I want to remove the image from that local registry. It can be Docker image RM, or I can use Docker RMI. Docker image RM or Docker RMI. Here, image name or ID. If I want to remove all the images, or if I want to remove multiple images, can I do this way? Something like this, space separated, multiple images. We can use this way, space separated multiple. If there are hundreds of images, I can do this way, RMI -F, that is force Docker images -Q. What this Docker images -Q returns? Docker images returns lot of details. Docker images -Q returns only IDs. It will remove only IDs. So here, this is going to return all the image IDs that we are passing it to RMI. This is going to return only image IDs, all the image IDs that we are passing it to RMI. So in that case, will it delete all the images? -F stands for forcefully. By executing this command, will it remove all the images? It will remove all these images. Now, one question in the interview, they'll ask, can we remove image if there is a container, if there is a running container, or there is a container for that image? There is a running container for that image. -Q, like it is going to return only IDs. Quite, Q stands for quite, only IDs. It is going to return only IDs. Okay. Docker images -Q, if I execute, it will return only IDs. Now, this is one question. Can we remove image if there is a running container for that image? Let me show that. Let me connect to my Docker server, any server. Let me connect to my Docker server where there is a containers also available. So in this server, we deployed applications, we deployed containers also. Let me connect to this server. Now here, Docker images. These many images are there. Now how to get only IDs? Only IDs, Docker images hyphen Q. Is it returning only IDs? Now, how to see the containers? How many containers are there, which we already discussed yesterday? How to see the containers? Docker PS or Docker container ls. It will return only what? Only running containers. If there are any stopped containers, will it return this? If I want to list all the containers, running plus stopped containers, I can use Docker ps-a or Docker container ls-a or hyphen all, short form, hyphen a, full form, hyphen all. Now, there are two running containers. If I want to see both running plus stopped, Docker ps-a. So I don't have any stopped containers, only these many containers are there. Now, can I, this is one container which is created out of this image. Now, will I able to remove this image? There is a container for that image. Will I able to remove this image? Or will I able to remove this image? There is a container for this. There is a container for this. Will I able to remove these two images? Let me show you. Docker RMI. Using ID I can try, or using repository reference I can try. So let me try this. Docker RMI. I am trying to remove this image using Docker RMI. So what it is saying? Unable to remove repository reference. There is a running container. Even though I use -f forcefully, will it delete? Will it delete this image? Even though I use -f, will it delete the image? Let me show you. I am doing -f. It is saying not removed. It is saying untagged, which means when I am using Docker RMI forcefully with the image reference, repository reference, and there is a container, is image is deleted or it is just removed that reference? If you see, is image is deleted or image is still there? If you see now, is image is deleted? Image is still there. But what it is removed? What it is removed? When I use this RMI-F with repository reference, what it is removed? The tag. It has removed the tag. But is it removed the image? Now, even though I use ID forcefully, I use ID forcefully, I am using ID forcefully. Is it going to delete? What it is saying? Unable to delete that image, and you cannot force also. You cannot force also. So, what is the answer? Can we remove image if there is a running container for that image? No, we can't do that. Now, there is a one more question in the interview. What is a dangling image? What is dangling image or dangling images? Dangling image or dangling images? What is dangling image or what is dangling images? Right? So an image which doesn't have any tag, repository tag. An image which doesn't have any repository tag is called as dangling image. It is not like an image without container is dangling image. It is not like that. I cannot call this as a dangling image, this one. So for this image, we don't have any container. We cannot call this as a dangling image. But can I call this as a dangling image? An image without repository reference, Can I call this as a dangling image? So this we call it as a dangling image. An image without any repository tag or without any repository reference is called as dangling image. Now, how to see only dangling images? I want to see only dangling images. We can use this option, Docker images -f filter. Docker images -f stands for filter, or you can use -filter full form. Filter or -f. This way, dangling equals to true. -f or -filter. So if I execute this way, I can see the dangling images. How many dangling images are there in this machine as of now? If I use this -filter or -f, dangling equals to true, how many dangling images are there? One dangling image. So if there is no repository reference, we call it as a dangling image. Now, can I again tag? Is it possible to again tag this image? Is it possible to again tag this image? Is it possible to tag this image again? There is a command for that. Docker tag. Image name or ID, old name or new name, basically that old name. Now something like this, Docker tag, right? I want to tag again, Docker hands-on slash some tag, some repository, maven-web- application :2 this image ID. It is a reverse, guys. It is reverse. Okay, it is reverse. Old name, old tag, old name or ID, and a new name, something like this. Now I tagged again. Now can I call this image as dangling image anymore? I tagged again using Docker tag. Can I call this image as a dangling image anymore? Now do I have any dangling images? Do I have any dangling images in this server? No. So we can tag using Docker tag. We can tag. We can tag this way, right? Now, is it possible to tag one image with multiple repositories? This is one image. Is it possible to tag one image with multiple repositories also sometimes? We will not do that. But sometimes in the interview they will ask, can I have one image tagged with multiple repositories? Multiple registries, which means, yes, that is possible. That is possible, but we will not do that. That is possible, but we will not do that in real time. Okay. So sometimes in the interview they are going to ask this: what is dangling image? What is dangling image? An image without any repository reference is called as dangling image. Now I want to delete only dangling images. If there are no running containers, again we can delete. If I want to delete only dangling images, how can I delete? If I want to remove only dangling images, how can I delete? Only dangling images. If there is again no containers only, then only it will delete. Can I do this way? This way? So if I use this one, is it going to return all the image IDs or only dangling image IDs because of this filter? Only dangling image IDs. And again, if there is no containers only, it will remove. If there is a running container for the dangling image, is it going to remove that image again? It will not do that. Okay. And there is a one more command called docker image prune. Prune commands. We have a prune commands like docker image prune, docker container prune. Like this, you have some prune commands: docker image prune, container prune, system prune. Like this, docker network prune. Like this, you have commands: prune, cleaning the docker systems. We are not going to use dangling images, right? We are not going to use any dangling image, right? So what is dangling image? In which scenario it will become a dangling image? In which scenario it will become a dangling image? We are not going to build any dangling images. If you build the dangling image also, right, you cannot push that image to any registry. Dangling image is nothing but an image without any repository reference. Will I able to push and pull dangling images to any registry? Because there is no reference to that repository, right? So we are not going to build, but in which scenario it will delete? In which scenario it will become a dangling image? If I try to use image reference to delete the image and there is a running container, in which scenario it will become dangling image? If I try to remove image with a repository reference and there is a running container for that image, in that case will it become a dangling image? It will become a dangling image. Now if I want to remove the dangling images, I can use this prune command. There are some prune commands: docker system prune. What it is going to do? Docker system prune. If you see what it is, what and all things it is going to delete when I execute docker system prune. It is going to delete all stopped containers, all dangling images, and its cache. As of now, do I have any stopped container in this system? As of now, do I have any stopped container in this system? No. And do I have any dangling images in this system as of now? No. If I say why, is it deleted anything? Is it able to reclaim some storage? Some storage? No. So we can clean up the system, Docker system, We can clean up. If you have some stopped containers, you can delete. If you have some dangling images, you can delete. By executing which command, we can clean up the Docker system where it can delete existing. Nandabala is again asking how to get dangling images. I already explained. Be little fast in understanding the concept, Nandabalaya. I already told this command. Docker images -f filter. You can apply this filter so that it will list the dangling images. As of now, do I have any dangling image? Do I have any dangling image? No. What is dangling image? An image without any repository reference is called as dangling image. So I can clean up. The way I have a Docker system prune, I can execute Docker image prune. What it does, what this does. The way I have executed Docker system prune, we can execute Docker image prune. Is it going to delete all the images? Is it going to delete all the images? No. It is not going to remove all the images. What it is going to remove? Docker image prune will remove only dangling images. Dangling images. If I have any dangling image, and if there is no running container for the dangling image, then will it delete only the dangling images? Yes, right. Now, the way I have a Docker image prune, similarly I have a container prune. What it does? If I execute Docker container prune, what it does? It will remove only stopped containers. It is going to remove only stopped containers. Like this, you have some commands, right? This is going to remove stopped containers, right? Similarly, you have a Docker network prune. Docker network. What is network? I will explain later. If there are some Docker networks and no containers is running in that network, unused networks, unused Docker networks, it will be deleted, right? This network prune. So we can use these prune commands to clean up your Docker servers to get some storage back. Suppose if I have some dangling images and those dangling images are not used in any containers, is it going to take some storage from that server? Image is basically a package, some kind of a package. Is it going to use some storage? Is it going to use some disk in that server? That image? Yes. And also, if I have some stopped containers, does that stopped containers also take some storage, disk? It is going to have some files, that container related files. So by using these commands, can I get back the storage in that server by deleting stopped containers, by deleting dangling images? Storage. But does the stopped containers will take CPU and memory? If I have some stopped containers, is it going to take any CPU, any memory? RAM, CPU and memory. CPU and memory, RAM. Memory is nothing but RAM. Does the stopped containers will take any CPU or memory? Guys, please be on mute. Please be on mute. There is a lot of background noise. Please be on mute. I don't want to repeat this again and again. Please be on mute. Is it going to take any CPU and memory stopped container? No. but it is going to take some storage. There will be some files. So if you are not at all using that container, if you are not at all using that image, can we clean up that images and containers by executing these commands? Yes. So we can use these prune commands, right? Now, if I want to see more details about any image, what command I can use, or any image? I can use Docker image inspect. I can use that image ID, or this repository reference. Now, do you see, is it giving more details about that image? What is the image ID? To which repository it is tagged? When that image is created? What are the environment variables has been set to that image? But in our Docker file, did I set these environment variables anywhere? In our Docker file, did I set these environment variables like Catalina home, Java home directory? Did I set any environment variables in our own Docker file for this image? No. But from where these environment variables are coming? In which image it has been set? This has been set in the base images, right? So if you see, we are using Tomcat as a base image. We are using Tomcat as a base image. We are using Tomcat as a base image, right, for this application. This base image. Again, that is in the Docker Hub. That base image is also created using some Docker file. Without Docker file again, is it possible to create any image? No. So we are using this image from the Docker Hub, Tomcat image, base image, right? If you see the Docker file links, right? You can go and see the Docker file, whatever Docker file has been used for that base images, right? You can see there this link, Docker file links. So like we are using some version of the base image. This base image is also created using some Docker file, right? Some Docker file. Let me open some Docker file here. Docker file link. This is a Tomcat Docker file. Who created this Docker file? Did we create it, or it is created by community? This is created by Apache community, right? If you see, they are also using, some this image we are using, this version of the Docker image we are using, and this image is again created using Docker file, some version of the Docker files, right? You can see that link. The Docker file links here. So these guys have written some version of the Docker file. Let me use some version of the Docker file. Let me open this one. So if you see, this is the Docker file for Tomcat image, base image. Again, do you see they are using another base image? Tomcat is using again one more base image. from what they are getting from this base image. This is Tomcat base image Docker file. What they are getting from this again? JDK, Java. On top of this Java image, do you see they are setting some environment variables? They are setting some environment variables and they are downloading Tomcat. They are downloading Tomcat software on top of this Java base image. On top of this Java base image, they are downloading, they are setting some environment variables. They are downloading Tomcat tar files. They are downloading Tomcat tar file. You can see that, right? If you see using these instructions, they are downloading the Tomcat. They are downloading the Tomcat. They are extracting the Tomcat software. So this is Docker file instruction. We will discuss in detail what is this env. The name itself is saying env stands for what? This is Docker file instructions. We are going to cover what is env, what is run, what is work dir. We will discuss. But by looking at this, what can you understand? Using env in Docker file, we can set the environment variables. Can I see these environment variables now? Here, can I see that Catalina home, whatever environment variables they have set, path, that path. So these environment variables, can we access these environment variables within the container or within the image? Can I refer these environment variables anywhere within that container or image? Yes. So we will cover this in a separate class, Docker file instructions. But if you want to see more details about image, what command I can use, guys? If I want to see more details about image, what command I can use? Docker, I can use inspect or Docker image inspect. Docker inspect or image inspect. We can use this one to see more details. To see more details. Now, let's try to understand few more concepts. Now, to delete images, if I have a running containers, will I able to delete? As I already told. Now, this container is created out of this image. This container is created out of this image. I cannot delete these two, but will I able to delete this image? There is no running container for this image. Will I able to delete this image? How can I do that? Docker RMI. Even though I try to remove these images like this, if I try to do this, will these two images will be deleted, guys? Even though I try to do this? No. Now if you see, it has saying just this image has been untagged and also deleted. But other two images, is it able to delete these two images? Why? What it is trying to say? Unable to delete this image. Image is being used in a running container. So that's why if you see, those two images are not deleted. Now if I want to delete these images, do I need to stop these containers and remove these containers? Then can I delete these images? So how to stop the container or how to remove the container now if I want to delete that? I'm just explaining the commands, which doesn't mean you should execute these commands in your project. So since Balajis are explained, we can delete the containers by executing this command. So let me execute this command in my Docker server. Don't do that. Once you get into a project, since Balaji's are explained in Docker, because I see that is how you guys are following. You guys are following, execute this command and see the output, what it comes. Don't follow that. Okay. Once you get into a project, don't execute these kind of commands. Since Balaji's are explained, let me try these commands in my Docker server. What happened? So I'm just explaining the commands based on the use case. You can use that. Based on the use case, based on the requirement, you can use the commands, right? So now I can execute this way, ls-q again. If I want to remove stopped containers also, like this, ls-aq, I can remove. So if I execute this, is it going to return stopped container IDs, guys? If I execute this one, is it going to remove stopped container IDs? Is it going to return stopped container IDs? Is it going to return stopped container IDs? Docker container ls or Docker ps. Is it going to return stopped container IDs or only running containers? You see here itself. So if I use this option A, it is going to return. Now, if I execute this one, what will happen? What is this -f? Forcefully. Without forcing, will I able to delete running containers? Without forcing, will I able to delete running containers? No. First, I need to stop, then delete. First, I need to stop, then delete. I don't want to do that. Can I directly remove running containers by using -f? Yes. So now I'm removing the containers. There is no containers now. Can I remove these images? Can I remove these images? Now, because there is no running containers for this image, can I remove this image? Docker RMI. We can do that. Now, Rishabh is asking one question. Is it possible to recover the containers if we deleted? Does anyone can tell? If you understood Docker concepts correctly, you should be able to answer. I deleted the containers. Will I able to recover the containers? If you understand Docker, recover in the sense recreating. If you understood the Docker concept correctly, you should be able to answer. I deleted a container. Can't I create a container again? If there is an image available, if there is an image available, can't I recover? I mean to say, can I recreate that container? We can do that, right? But if there is no image, then will you able to do that? Now image is not there locally. Locally, I have deleted the image. But do I still have the image in the registry? Do I still have the image in the registry? So now, can't I recover that application again like this? -name that Maven web application, this image. Now, since I deleted that image locally, do you see, is it pulling image from again registry to create a container? Now is my application again up and running? Is my application is again up and running? Is my container is up and running? I'm trying to get public IP of that server. This is the public IP of that server. Now 7070, that port, host port. Is my application again up and running? So it's up and running again. So we can delete images like this, right? We can delete images like this. Docker RMI. Now, sometimes in the interview, they are asking one question. Let me tell you what is that question. I have one Docker server. This is one Docker server. In this server, I have an image. In this server, I have a Docker image. In this server, I have a Docker image. This is my Docker image. And there is a one more Docker server. There is a one more Docker server. Now, how can I move this image from one server to other server? How can I move this image? Now, the image is in this server. Now, I want this image to be part of this server. How can we do that? So, we can use registry concept. Guys, don't say Docker Hub. Don't say Docker Hub, say registry. That can be Docker Hub, that can be Nexus, that can be JFrog, that can be easier. Because in real time, you are not going to push images to the Docker Hub, your application images. So don't say Docker Hub, say registry. That can be Docker Hub, that can be easier, that can be Nexus, anything. So if I have a registry, will I able to push that image to the registry? Let's say I have some registry, Docker registry. This can be any registry. So will I able to push that this image to that registry? Docker push. Before doing Docker push, if it is not authenticated, I can do the Docker login. In this server, can I pull this image by executing Docker pull? Now the question in the interview, the question here is without registry. Without registry, we don't have any registry. Without registry, how can I do that? That is what the question. Arvind is asking, can we push the image used? Can we push the image? Can we push the used image by any container? Container is different, image is different. Container is a runtime instance of your image. Container is a runtime instance of your image. You cannot push the image using container. I mean to say, container is different, image is different. Consider simple term. Simple term, let's relate this to AWS. AMI and EC2. AMI and EC2. AMI is like in Docker, it is like a Docker image. It's a package. EC2 is like a container in simple term, right? Image is different, container is different. Now, in the interview, they are asking this question, how to move image from one server to other server without registry. There is no registry. But in real time, do we really don't have registries? If you go to any project, we don't have registries. Do we really don't use registries concept in real time? We will use registries. We will use Docker registries just to test your Docker knowledge. Just to test your Docker knowledge, they are going to ask this question. how good you are in Docker, they are going to ask this question. How can I move? Let's say I don't have a registry. How can I move the image? Chandan is saying SCP. It is little bit correct, but can I directly SCP this image? Can I see this image as a single file? Can I see this image as a single file anywhere? Now I have this image, let's say. I have, let's say, this image. Can I see that as a file anywhere in the current directory or in the anywhere? Can I see that image as a single file? No. SCP partially correct. SCP partially correct. But before that, we need to do something. This image is basically multiple layers. It's a multiple layers. It has lot of layers. It has lot of layers. You can see those layers like this by inspecting that image, or I can see by executing this history command. We can use this history command. So image is basically multiple layers. So if I create one kind of a package, one kind of a tar file out of this image with all the layers, then will I able to copy the tar file? If I create a tar file out of this image, if I create a tar file out of that image, the tar file contains all the layers again. Then will I able to SCP? So first we need to create a tar file out of this image. So there is a command for that. There is a command for that. We need to use one command called docker save. Docker save that image name or ID you can use -o some name. Some name, something like this. So I can convert this into a tar file. I can convert that into a tar file, that image into a tar file. The moment I execute this command, this tar file contains what? The moment I execute this command, it is going to create some tar file. The tar file contains what? Does the tar file contains all the layers of that image? Does the tar file contains all the layers of that image? Yes. So then once I create a tar file, it's a file, then will I able to SCP to this system, the tar file? Once I create a tar file, then will I able to SCP the tar file to this system? Will SCP the tar file? You are going to SCP this tar file, whatever tar file you created, from this server to whatever server, whatever username and whatever IP. We copy the tar file. Once we copy the tar file to this system, then the tar file is copied. We copied the tar file. Then how can I convert this tar file into an image again? We copied the tar file. Then in this server, we can execute one command called docker load. Docker load -i, that tar file name. Docker load that -i, the tar file name. So -i stands for input. What we are trying to load out of this tar file? We are using docker load -i input this tar file. So this command will load what? This command will create a, I mean to say this will again load that image. So we can do this way. Let's say one more scenario. Let's say this is my private server. where I don't have a internet, in that case, will I able to pull the images from internet like Docker Hub? Suppose this is my private server. Let's say, will I able to pull the images from internet like Docker Hub? If there is no internet in this server, will I able to pull the images? No. In this case also, can I use this concept? Will I able to pull to one server where there is a internet? Then can I convert that image into a tar file and copy the tar file and again load that as a image? Will I able to do this in that scenario also? We can follow this approach in that scenario. Now, what is the answer, guys? How can we copy or how can we move image from one server to another server without registry? What is the answer in 2 words? What commands we can use? We can use Docker save and we can use Docker load. What is the answer for that? How can I move image from one server to another server without registry? What commands we can use to move that image from one server to another server without registry? We will use Docker save to convert that image to a tar file, then copy that image, SCP that tar file, then using Docker load we can do that. So if you see, this is the image, let's say. This is the image, let's say. I don't have anything here. Now if I do this Docker save, I can use image ID or this reference, Docker save. Then -o. What is -o stands here in the Docker save? Output, right? I'm saving this as an image, something like this, as a tar file. Now, what this tar file contains now? I got a tar file. What this tar file contains? What this tar file contains now? All the layers of that image. Now, once I have a tar file, will I able to copy this tar file to whatever server I want to copy? SCP this tar file to whatever server. Will I able to copy this tar file SCP? Then once I copy to that server, can I execute this command? Docker load on that tar file in the other server once I copy. So this way, will I able to move image from one server to other server without registry using Docker save, Docker load? We can do that. But in real time, do we really don't have a registries? We will have a registries, guys. But just to test your knowledge, how good you are at Docker, how comfortable you are with the Docker commands, they are going to ask this question. This questions has been asked for our students multiple interviews. So using Docker save and Docker load, I can move images from one server to other server without registry. Docker save and Docker load, right? So image that name, basically repository name or ID, we can save that image as a file. And again, we can load that image from the tar file, whatever name. Now, when we are using registry also, right? Whenever we are pushing or whenever we are pulling What is happening, guys? Let me show you. Let me pull some image, or let me push some image, or let me pull some image. If you see, when I am pulling some image, I am pulling this image. So what is this? What is this? All these things are what? What is this? All these things are what? Layers. Whenever I am pushing also, what it is pushing to the registry? The layers, right? Sunil is asking, by any chance we will use this in our real time, right? I told, right? In real time, you are going to have registries. If you really don't have a registry, if you really don't have internet connectivity in some server, you want image in that server, in that case, can I use this? Can I use this approach, load, save? We can use this approach. So based on the use case, guys, based on the requirement, real time, there is no word called real time. There is a requirement. You need to work with that requirement. So real time, there is no real time. There is no, demo like that. Real time is nothing but there is a requirement. I have this requirement. Do whatever you want to do. There is one task. This is one task. This is my requirement. Apply whatever concepts you learned. Apply whatever concepts you learned. Then do this work. That is called real time. Don't use term called real time. I would like to call that as a requirement. I have this requirement. Do whatever you want to do. I want this task to be done. That is how you should learn. Don't by heart. Step one, do this. Step two, do this. So this is my requirement. What I can use, what can be done so that I can do this task. So based on the use case, if I already have a registry, if there is a NAT instance attached to that private servers, if there is a registry, and if there are NAT gateway attached to that private servers, will I able to pull the images from internet also if required in the private servers or ECR, even though it's a private server, if there is a NAT instance attached to that private server, that is what the learning. You need to apply all the concepts. So don't blindly execute, don't blindly follow this running notes. I am giving a running notes. You are executing this command. Okay, it is successful. You are executing this command. It is successful. But understand what is happening. That is most important. Now, whatever work you do, that is against the requirement. Whatever work you do, that is against the requirement and best practices. That is real time. So now we can use all these things. Now there is a one more command called a Docker search. What this Docker search can do, we are not going to use this command anytime. What we can do using Docker search, like this, what it is searching, what it is searching, it is searching an image. It is searching an image. From where it is searching? Docker Hub. But we are not going to use this image, right? We are not going to use this command. So all these are image related commands, like the frequently used commands. Okay. Now let's come to the containers. Let's come to the containers. The flow is very, very important, guys. To create image, what is required? Can I create an image without Docker file? So Sunil is asking, will it search only in the registry which we have connected? So which registry we have connected? We have not connected to any registry. We have not connected to any registry, right? There is no connection. We just downloading the images from the registry, right? So it is going to search in the Docker Hub only. But we are not going to use that search command anywhere. Okay. Now let's understand this flow. Without a Docker file, will I able to create an image? Without Docker file, will I able to create an image? No. Without image, will I able to create any container? Without image, will I able to create any container? No. Now we have a Docker file. Using that Docker file, we created an image. We push that image. We authenticated with registry, right? All these image related commands we understood. Now let's come to the container. What is container? What is container? We already created a containers. What is container? The container is basically a runtime instance. Runtime instance or process, basically process of the Docker image. So if I need some software in this container, or if I need some configuration in this container, or if I need some application to be running in that container, that should come from where, guys? That should come from where? I need some package, some software. I need some application in that container. I need some configuration. That should come from where? That should come from the image. So while creating an image, how can I make sure the required softwares are part of that image, required application is part of that image, required configurations are part of that image? That I can define where? That I can define in the Docker file. So now container is a runtime process of the image. Now I can create a container out of any image. If you see, there are a lot of images. If you see, there are a lot of images in the Docker Hub. If you see, there is an image called Ubuntu. There is an image called Ubuntu. There is an image called Ubuntu. There is an image called CentOS. So I can create a container out of this image. But if I create a container out of this image, does that container contains any application, any software, any process? If I create, what this image contains? This image contains only container libraries, which it should interact with kernel. But do we have any process up and running, any application up and running in that container? If I create an image out of this, sorry, if I create a container out of this, let me show you. So I am creating container docker run hyphen name CentOS container. I am using this image. From where this image is coming? From where this image will be downloaded? Docker Hub. And since I have not mentioned the tag, what version of the image will be pulled? What tag it will consider? Since I am not giving :latest. In this Docker Hub, in this repository, this is repository. Do I have that tag :latest? Do we see the tag? If I want to create a container out of this tag, CentOS 8, in that case, do I need to mention something like this? Repository tag. So this is default registry Docker Hub. So it is going to create a container. So this image is not there locally. It is pulling the image, that CentOS image, to create a container. I am not using -d, detached mode also I am not using. It is created in an interactive mode. But if you see why that container is in exited, not there in running state. Do you see this container is in running state? Do you see? Is it running? Why it is in exited state? Why it is in stopped state? Why it is in stopped state? Why that is in stopped state, guys? Any guess? You did not run in a detached mode. Even though I did not run in a detached mode, if I run in an interactive mode, it should be running, right? It is not because of the detached mode. It's not because of the interactive mode. So is there any process? Is there any process which keeps that application alive, which keeps that container alive? Is there any application or any process which is running in that image? I mean to say in that container. Do you have any application or process? Why this container is alive? Why is this container is alive? This container. Which process is making this container up and running? What process is running inside? If you see what command got executed, what command has executed, I mean to say what process is running in this one? Tomcat. But when this container is created, what command got executed? What command got executed when I created the container out of this image? Shell. That is successfully executed, and that is successfully executed. Exited and zero status. Zero status in the sense this command is successfully executed. It's done with its job. Is there any process which is running, which is making that container to be up and running? Is there any process, any application, any code which makes that container alive? No. So this is the default command. Is it successfully executed? You can see exited and zero indicates success. It is successfully executed and it's done with its job. Is there any process which keeps that container alive, up and running? No. Because do you have any software or any application in that image, this image? No. Right? So now if I create a container out of some other images like this, suppose there is an image called Nginx. There is an image called Nginx. If I create a container out of this image, does container will be up and running? And what will be running inside that container? What process? What application? I mean to say what software will be running? If I create a container out of this image, what will be running in that container? Nginx. Nginx will run. Nginx software, right? Suppose if I directly create a container out of this image, Tomcat image, does my container will be up and running? If I directly create a container out of this image, does container will be up and running? Tomcat image. Yes, it will up and running. But will my application is part of that container? If I directly create a container out of this image itself, does my application will be part of that container? No. But using this image, can I create my own image? Can I use this as a base image to create my own image? On top of this image, I can copy my application code. That's what we have done. That's what we have done, right? So container is a runtime instance of the Docker image, right? Now, how to create a container? What commands we used to create a container? What command we used to create a container out of the image? We used Docker run. Similarly, there is a command called Docker create. Similarly, there is a command called Docker create. Now, Docker run, Docker create. What is the difference between Docker run and Docker create? Any guess? I can create a container using Docker create also. I can use all these options. There are a lot of options available. Okay, we will slowly understand all those options. I can create container using Docker create, and using Docker run also I can do that. But what is the difference? Docker run. So it will create a container and also it will start the container. It will start the container. It will create and start the container if I use Docker run. But if I use only create, what it does? It will just create a container. It will not start the container. It will not start the container. It will not start the container. So how can we start the container? If I use Docker create to create a container, how can I start that container? What command I need to again use? Docker start that container ID or name. So if I use Docker run, it is like Docker create plus Docker start. It is like Docker create plus start. If I use Docker run, it is going to create a container and it is going to start the container. But using Docker create, if I do that, is it going to start the container? No. It will just create that. Let me show you. Let me remove all the containers. Let me remove all the containers and I will show you. Now let's say I am using Docker create. I am using Docker create. And again, guys, if I don't give the name, who will assign the name for a container? Who will assign the name for a container? Whether I am using Docker run, whether I am using Docker create, I am not giving the name. Who will assign the name? The Docker daemon, right? So let me do this way. Without doing this -p, if I create a container, port forwarding, container will be running, but will I able to access that container from outside Docker without port forwarding? Without port forwarding, if I create, will I able to access that application, that container from outside? No. And again, one more thing, interview question. Is it possible to do the port mapping or port forwarding for existing containers? I created a container without port forwarding, port mapping. Will I able to do for an existing container this port mapping, port forwarding? Will I able to do the port mapping, port forwarding for an already existing container? No, you can't do that. You can't do that port mapping or port forwarding for an existing container. So this port mapping, port forwarding has to be done when? While creating a container itself. While creating a container itself. This is one interview question. Will I able to do the port mapping or port forwarding for an existing container? We can't do that. That has to be done while creating a container itself. So like this, my image name, whatever image, something like this. Now I am not giving the name. So who will assign the names for that container? If you see, the Docker will assign. And also if I see Docker PS, why I don't see that container even though I created a container? Why I don't see that when I execute Docker PS? Because it's not started. So how can I see all running plus stopped containers? Can I use this option? Now if you see, it has just created, it has not started. It has just created, it has just started. And do you see the name? The fancy name. What name it has given? Docker has given some fancy name. Suspicious Moser. Some fancy name, some random name, right? Is it possible to update the name of a container? Can I change this name? I don't like this name. Is it possible to update the name of this container? Will I able to rename this container? We can do that. What command? Docker rename. Docker rename. You can use container ID, new name, container ID and new name, or this old name and a new name. Now if you see, is the name is updated after doing this Docker rename? We can update the name, but it is just created, it is not started. What command I can use to start this container? Do I need to execute again Docker run? Do I need to again execute Docker run? If I do the Docker run, is it going to start that container or is it going to create another container? If I do Docker run, is it going to start that container or is it going to create another container? Another container. I don't want to create another container. I just want to start the container. So what command I can use? We can use Docker start. We can use container ID. We can use container ID, container name, right? Container ID, container name. So we can start this. Now this time, if you see, is my container is running now in a running state, which means is my application up and running in this container? My application is up and running. Now Chandan is asking, is it possible to update the name of the images? Image, I would like to say image doesn't have a name. Whatever name you see, that is basically reference. That is basically image, repository reference. Will I able to refer? Will I able to update this repository tag, which we already discussed, using Docker tag? Using Docker tag, will I able to do this? Now if I say one more thing like this, like this. Now if I see, it is showing 4 images. It is showing 4 images. Is it really I have 4 images or one image has 2 tags? Do I really have 4 different images? Or if you closely observe, how many images I have? If you closely observe, do I really have 4 images? No, only 3. But do I have one image with 2 tags, 2 different tags? Yes, right? So we can have the tags. We can tag like this, which we already discussed. Okay. You no need to associate, already that is associated, right? Shiva is asking, can we associate dangling image with container? You no need to associate, already container is created out of that image only. But if I tag that image again, if the tag that image again, when I do the Docker PS, let me show that. So how dangling image will happen? Now let me show you. If I try to remove the image forcefully using this tag, it will become a dangling image. It will become a dangling image. But there is another tag. There is another tag. That's why it is referring that one. There is another tag which is referring that one. That image has two tags which is referring that one now. Now, if I try to remove this one also, if I try to remove that one also, I can see that as a dangling image. I can see that as a dangling image. Image is still there. Container is also there. If you see, it is referring ID because we don't have the tag. The moment I tag that again, the moment I tag that image again, like this, will I able to see this? Will I able to see this here instead of image ID? When I do the Docker PS, will I able to see this? Can I see that again? You no need to associate. Image is already, container will be associated with some image. Image is different, container is different, but without image, does we can create a container, or does container can exist without image? No, right? So this is how it works. Now we use Docker create, but if I use Docker run, what happens, guys? Suppose if I use Docker run, I am trying to use Docker run. When I am using Docker run, if I don't use -d, what happens? If I don't use -d, what happens? Does containers will be created in an interactive mode? If I close this terminal, if I press Control C, does the container will be stopped if the container is running in an interactive mode? Yes. If container is running in an interactive mode, if the container is running in an interactive mode, if I close this terminal or if I press Control C, it will stop. But if I create a container in a detached mode, background mode, if I close this terminal also, will the container will continue to run? Yes. Now I'm using Docker run. I already have one container with this name, with this host port, with this host port. Will I able to create another container with same host port? Another container with same host port? No. Something like this. I'm using different port. And also, can I use another container same name? Will I able to create one more container with same name, container name? No. I'll create a container for different application. So I'm using Docker run. I'm using Docker run. So do I need to explicitly start this container, or container will be automatically started since I'm using Docker run? Container will be automatically started. It will create a container and it will start the container. If you see, it will create a container and it will start the container. We are using Docker run. So do you see, it has started the container also. This is Docker run. Difference between Docker run and Docker create. Now, if required, can I stop the container? The way I have started the container, if required, will I able to stop the container? I want to stop this container. Is it possible to stop the container? I don't want to remove. Container should be there, but I want to stop. Container should be there, I want to stop. So can I use this command? Docker stop. We can use Docker stop. The way we have a Docker stop, we can do this Docker restart. What it does? The restart, it will stop the container and start the container. Container is nothing but what? Internally, it's one process. It's one process. It is one process. It will start and stop that process. Now, if I restart this container, within this container, what process is running? Within this container, what process is running? Tomcat process. So it is going to stop and start that process. Like this, we have a few more commands, guys. Like this, we have a few more commands, container related commands. I'll continue container related commands tomorrow also. We have a class tomorrow. Once we are familiar with commands, we are going to learn about Docker file. What is Docker file? What is all these instructions? Very, very important. What is this? We are going to learn all these instructions, Docker file instructions, right? So tomorrow we are going to continue with container commands and I'll start with the Docker file. Don't miss. Docker file is very, very important in an interview perspective. In the interview, they are going to ask you to write some sample Docker files. There might be like 10 to 15 minutes. There might be a questions on Docker file itself. We are going to cover in detail. Don't miss. We'll continue tomorrow, guys. So whatever commands has been discussed today, I want you to practice all those commands. I have already shared the document. I'm going to share the running notes also. But don't blindly execute the commands. Understand what is that command, right? So we'll continue tomorrow. So the image layers will not be created that way. Like image layers will not be created that way, Arvind. So each and every Docker file instruction, you are going to have instructions in a Docker file like from, copy, run, right? That instructions will create a layers for that image. That instructions, you have a CMD, you have a run, you have a copy, you have a, some instructions are there in a Docker file, right? That instruction will create a layer. Each instruction in a Docker file will create a layer that you will understand once you go for a Docker file. Thank you, guys. I'll continue tomorrow with Docker commands and the Docker file instructions. Okay. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.